So what we have is basically two scripts and then one table that you're going to need. And the scripts work off of one another, the main to the sub. And what it does is it basically will open up the sub script, look to that tables to export file, and then export that file in more of an XLS type fashion. What's kind of cool though about this is that you can actually set a folder of where you want the work to go. So this is something where over time, instead of having on your hard drive, which we all get used to here in ACL, having everything kind of show up in this one folder here, what you could do is export to this folder here like I've done. This is the workbook or work paper export folder, and notice I've kind of tested and exported all of my files there. Now you do need to create whatever folder on your hard drive that you want, but again, let's say you're doing your vendor to employee matching and you want to set up a folder for that. That you could do here. Then you could do some unrecorded liability test work. That could be another folder. And we're going to show you in this ACL script how you can adjust that accordingly and export the proper, I guess, data to the proper place in your ACL setup. So let me now go over to ACL. We're going to be working with these two scripts as well as one table. So let's just do that. So the table, let's start out with that one. I like to put, in my test input files, these are files that are more constant, and we'll talk about these today. The one that we're working with is called tables to export, and this will have all of the standard tables actually that come with the tool set. So we have the employee master file, paid invoice file, vendor master file, tables to keep, keywords, and tables to export. So it's basically nothing created, and we're just kind of exporting that. So let's go look into now the script that is going to export that data. Again, keep in mind the tables to export table, you're going to put in here what you want to export from ACL. So if you had other work paper files that were created and that's what you want to export, you would put that in the table setup here. Okay, so in the actual work paper export, we have the main, and I'm going to just use this little push pin. I don't know if you use these a lot, I do. And then you could open up the sub and push pin that down. And now that they're push pinned, you can now work between those scripts, and especially now that it's in a much nicer format to look at, it makes it a lot easier to work with as well. So in working through this particular program here, what we're first going to do is we're going to open up the tables to export table. And we're going to count that. And I think if you look at this one, there was 6 items in there. So it's going to count 6, and then it's going to set the record count equal to count 1. And that's a variable. So if I just run my count here, I think everyone knows this, but if I run my count and I go to edit variables, notice count 1 is equal to 6. So that's that variable that ACL automatically sets. And then I'm going to set up my V counter equal to 1. Then it's going to close that tables to export. So now what we're going to do is we're going to call this other program, SO1, edit my code here. I used to call it PO1, so we're going to call it SO1 work paper export sub while the counter is less than the record count counter. So basically counter equals 1, it is less than 6, so we can continue on and go to the sub. So now it's going to kind of loop around between these two scripts until it's done with all 6 tables exported. Okay, so what does it do here? It opens up the table to export. It locates record V counter, which is 1. So it locates that record, and it says V table equals table. Take a look at this field here. It's called table. So it's going to take the first name. If I just so if we say locate record, actually you know what, bear with me, I need to assign this one here, and V counter equal to 1. Okay, then we go over here, locate record V counter, right, 1. and then it's going to say vtable equals table. Now that I have that, I can now go into my edit variables and notice vtable is equal to the employee master file. So now saved in ACL's brain is employee master file. I clean it up a little bit here by all trimming it. So we have the vtable clean, and then I close that table. So that's just going to be something I do just to clean it up a little bit. And then down here, this is a little bit of code I got from ACL. It's really nice code. I don't understand it that well, but it's okay. What it's going to do is it's going to automatically open up your ACL document. It's actually going to read your ACL document, and it's going to create a file called temp folder content, and it's going to figure out what is the project name within that particular document. And in that project name, it's going to figure out where is it saved on your hard drive. So what it's going to end up doing is calculating a new variable called vPath2Project, which is here, which is going to be your hard drive. And in my case, my hard drive right now, it's D AuditNet D 2012 webinar series, webinars October 09. That's where it's going to calculate. Now what I'm going to do, just to add a little more to the action, I'm going to add another folder called Workpaper Export, which is, I think we were just showing you a second ago where I deleted those files from Workpaper Export. Now you do need to make sure that that folder does exist, just repeating that, because ACL will look for that folder and say it doesn't exist. But what I'm then doing is, now that I know where it is, it's now going to add that extra folder. It's going to then add employee master file. Again, that was what was calculated up here, .xlsx. Okay, so now we have a structure of the entire path to the Workpaper export with the XLSX on the end of it. Then we're going to basically close this temp folder content. So all of this was happening within a new table that ACL created to figure out what the project name was, but also where does it exist on the hard drive. And then once I know where I'm going and I've set up this path, I can then open up the vtable clean, which is employee master file, export fields all XLSX, which is Excel, to this vPath2Project XLSX. Now, in doing this, I just noting like a bunch of things here with regards to variable names. First off, that when you do open up a table, that you need to put the percentage marks around it. When also we are setting up the vPath2Project here, I find that it's also a good idea to put the percentage marks around it within the quotes, and that way the quotes are there for the most part, so that the structure, if you do have like spaces in between, like AuditNet under, like that's a space there. I don't know if you see that. I don't know if lost it. Hold on. I don't know how. Yep. Okay. So notice how I have like a space within the AuditNet and a D in the 2012 and the webinar series. So because of those spaces, it's a really good idea to put the basically the quotation marks around it. And then it'll export the file, and these are just some, it's things like this that you'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out why isn't this running, and the reason is, you're just forgetting a little double quote, in the file. So, okay, once we have that, we close the table, and then we have a vCounter now, which it used to be 1. We're now going to say it's vCounter, the old vCounter, plus 1. So we're basically turning vCounter into 2 in this case. Okay, then it's going to go back to the main and start over again and say, okay, vCounter is 2, is it less than 6? Yep. Then it's going to go back, then it's going to locate record 2, in this case, which is paid invoice file, and it's going to go through that whole process again. Where is it? Where does it exist? Etc. There's probably a little bit of inefficiency in that I'm doing this directory of ACL each time, so there might be a little bit of again of some inefficiency there, but it's okay. It really goes very, very quickly. What I find is exporting to Excel can take a lot of time, and sometimes it's better to do all of your ACL work first and then have an export routine second. And that's what this would be. So now that I've explained this quite a bit, what I wanted to do, let me just think about that. Yeah, I think I just saved that small change there between the P and the S, so I think we're okay here. Now what I can do is I can run this WP export main, and what it's doing is very, very quickly here, it's exporting all of those files, and we should have a log here. Yep, we're all done. And now, so basically it was done and the execution of that completed. And now that I go to my hard drive and go to my workpaper export folder, notice I have all of these files that we just, were talking about in ACL have now been exported to Excel. So again, just talking a little bit more in this series about how to export all of your items. Similarly, what I wanted to now talk about is the auto deletion. So it's kind of the reverse of what we just talked about of exporting files and creating. Now we're going to delete files. And we have three types of programs here that we're running. One is just a kind of a overall script that kind of manages the other scripts, and that's called main, and I like to use that nomenclature of main, so that's the main one. Then it's going to run this table summary where it's basically going to figure out what are all the tables in your ACL document, and it's going to use a very similar technique to what we just used before when ACL had to open up that directory. Then it's going to go through every file, and if it does not exist on a table called tables to keep, it will delete it. So if that file does not exist, it will delete it. So again, this is now the reverse technique that we just talked about a second ago, and what we're now going to be doing is, let's just go over to this script here. So we did the export one. We're done with that. Now we're going on to deletion. So I can't stress it enough. Be careful on this one so that you don't destroy all of your work one day. The tables to keep file again uses the same kind of nomenclature. Table is the field name. And in here, I have every file name. Now, what you probably can't see, and I just need to blow it up here so that you can see it, is that I do have underscores in between each of the files, and that's a really good idea because notice here we have the underscores as well. So just keep that in mind that you want to have those underscores there. And again, these are the files we're going to keep. Notice how, just to keep it simple, they're the same files that are in the tables to export, tables to keep. Okay, so now that we have all this here, we're going to open up the reset ACL system main. And first off, what I'm going to do, don't have to do this, but I set my folder to tables, but again, don't really have to do that. And then we develop a table of all of the tables in the ACL project. So what this is doing here is I'm going to move on to this next script, which is the table summary auto. And this is something that ACL provided. It's a nice little program here, and I used pieces of it. I ended up commenting out. You can see the green comment code where I've used pieces of it where it was necessary or where it was useful. And in this case, what we're doing is we're having this ACL code, which I'm not going to go into depth in explaining. It came from tech support and has worked for me for many years now. But what it does is it actually creates it kind of goes right into that directory file, that ACL file that we talked about, the project. It imports it back in. It's kind of weird, like a print file. And then it creates a new table of that. And I just want to scroll. You see all this gobbledygook code. It's sort of tough to read and work with. What I was just going to try to focus you in on is one key fact, and that is that when we define the field being defined, table name is 35 characters long. So we basically are creating, or it is creating a table name called 35 characters. And I'm pretty sure that that's the limit in ACL for these types of fields. So that's why we're getting to that level. And then all of this other stuff, quite frankly, the field name, the field type, etc., doesn't really matter to me. I could have deleted it, but I just kept it for posterity's sake. And once we've done that, it is basically going through and calculating, the size of the fields and the types of each field and all that stuff. And it's actually not a bad thing to run, and we'll probably, let me run that on its own anyway, just for fun here. So let me just see if I can kind of run this on its own. And that did not come out very nicely. Bear with me one second. Let me just let me try to run that again. For some reason, my little ACL scripting is not working too well. Not sure exactly why, but something to take a look at. I did run this the other day, and it seemed to work quite well. And, the only thing I could think of, I know I was playing around a little bit. We were playing around with the text files and such, but that is kind of weird. So let me take a look here, just kind of quickly here, to try to understand why this might have gone off like that a little bit. And normally what you can do is kind of do like an analyze file, and that brings it back into structure here. Let's see if that's, it's not going to allow me. And the reason, let me just take a look here, is it looks like I'm going beyond the actual field layout here. So I got to figure out why that's happening. Looks like this is 91 characters here, and that looks okay. But for some reason, when we're actually defining the fields, we go much further than that. Well, let me try to fix this. In setting this up, it looks like everything is kind of good, quite frankly, until I get to. Let me just go through this. Sorry about this, folks, while you have to hold on here. But we're just going to go here. I'm going to attempt. Let me try to. I'm kind of curious to see if. Let me just do one thing. Oh, yeah, because I'm using that file, aren't I? Let me just see here if it's something where I made a mistake, because I know I tested this the other day and it worked wonderfully. Let me just retry that one more time. Now that I've fully deleted that file, let me just delete that from here, delete that from there as well. And we're going to just go to our scripts here. Just run this one more time. Look at that. Okay, so what must have happened was, in all of my playing around, I must have created a file that kind of kept itself out there, and wasn't very nice in working with this script editor. Now, hopefully you won't experience that same issue, but I think that was just because I was testing around. What I was going to do, and I just want to show you what I was out to do there, was I was going to keep all of this code, and right when I got to this table name part, what I was noticing was this format 92 to 15. This was okay. We were okay because it was 91 characters big. But what I was finding was, going from 92 to 15, for some reason, that old table that we had a length of 91 versus 106. And I'm not exactly sure why, but because of that, it was kind of fooling ACL and not allowing that to work properly. But again, glad we were able to fix it. If anything, if you ever experience that issue, one thing I would say is delete the data table definition all manually, and that I think it was temp folder content as well. I deleted those two files, and upon doing that, everything worked beautifully. So, okay, now that we have that, that was my ultimate goal, was to show you this, was we now have this table name with all of the fields. And what I'm going to do is in the code, a little bit later in this code here, we then summarize on this table name. We'll just do this to a file called sum, just for lack of anything better. And notice here we get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tables that are here for analysis purposes. And please note that the data table definition all is not there because that was something that was created recently. The sum one has also just been created recently, and that isn't here, right? So I mean that's just not going to be in that list. So when we continue through this script and we open up the tables to keep, notice first off we make the field table name 35 characters, and that's going to match up with this table name 35 character here. And the reason I know it's 35 characters, which is right here, is because that's what was set in that ACL script that we were showing you. So now that that's set up, we have to set this one up to equate to that one. And we open up the table, the data table definition all. We then summarize on that table name that we just did. And then I join those two together in an unmatched format. So by joining the two together in an unmatched format, I'm going to get a file called tables to delete. And when I run this, data table definition all and sum will be part of that tables to delete. Once that's done, the tables to delete, we will then follow a very similar logic. So again, the tables to delete will include sum and data table definition all. Then it'll have a count of 2 when we run a count on that. And then very similar to the export routine that we just ran a second ago, now we're just going to do like a delete routine. So we're going to open up the sub program down here. It's going to open up tables to delete, find record 1, what is the table name, let's say it's data table definition all. It assigns it to that. And then we're going to delete the format vtable, which is data table definition all. That's going to be deleted here. And then this other file here, table plus .fil, will be deleted as part of that. And whenever you have a delete table.fil OK, that will actually go out to your hard drive and delete what is on the hard drive. So keep that in mind. Then it's going to set the counter +1, go back to the main, do it again. Now it's going to find the sum file, delete that one, and it's going to delete that all the way through. So again, just in summary there, even with a little bit of a problem there, we figured it out. Ultimately what this thing is going to do is it's going to run an ACL type script that will identify all of your tables in your ACL document. Once it does that, it then is going to join it with a file called tables to keep in a unmatched way so that it finds the ones like data table and sum. Then it's going to do a routine of subbing and deleting those files that are, in this case here, deleting those files that are not on the keep list, are the ones that get deleted. Okay, so this is now reset ACL main. Again, I'm going to have this nasty thing that'll say, please, don't do this without thinking about it. You'll hit the OK button, and then it'll run through. And notice here that the sum, the data table definition have been deleted, and we now have the main tables remaining in here. So